The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and fresh coffee, the kind that had been sitting on a warmer just a little too long. Fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead, steady and unchanging, like the rhythm of a long career built on routine. Dr. Andrew Collins leaned against the stainless steel counter, his white coat crisp, his posture confident in a way that came from years of knowing he was good at what he did. He had the kind of presence that filled a room without effort. Across from him stood a nurse in light blue scrubs, her dark hair pulled neatly into a low bun, her hands wrapped gently around a paper cup. Her name was Rebecca Hayes. She stood calmly, her shoulders relaxed, though her eyes held a quiet steadiness that suggested a depth most people overlooked. In the background, 2 younger staff members lingered near the lockers, pretending to organize supplies while their attention drifted toward the conversation. Dr. Collins glanced at Rebecca's badge, then gave a small, dismissive smile. "So," he said, his voice casual but edged with something sharper, "a community college degree, huh? That's practical." There was a pause. Not an uncomfortable one. Just a quiet space where words could have been defended or challenged, but weren't. Rebecca didn't react the way people often did. She didn't stiffen or argue. She simply nodded once, taking a slow sip from her coffee. "It's been enough," she said softly. Her voice wasn't defensive. It wasn't proud, either. It was something gentler, like someone who didn't feel the need to prove anything. Dr. Collins gave a short chuckle, the kind people sometimes use to fill silence. "Well," he added, "I suppose we all find our place." Rebecca met his eyes for a moment. Not confrontational. Just present. "Yes," she said. "We do." The conversation drifted away after that, like so many small moments in a hospital do. Charts needed updating. Patients needed checking. Life moved forward in its quiet, steady way. But something about that exchange lingered in the room, unnoticed by most, remembered by one. Time passed, as it always does. Days turned into weeks, and weeks folded into months. The hospital continued its rhythm, early mornings, long nights, quiet victories, and the occasional loss that stayed with you longer than you'd like. Rebecca remained the same. She moved through the halls with a calm efficiency, offering a reassuring hand here, a kind word there. She had a way of speaking to patients that made them feel seen, not as cases, but as people. Older patients especially seemed to trust her. Maybe it was the way she listened without interrupting. Or the way she never rushed them, even when the day was busy. Or perhaps it was something harder to define, a quiet kindness that didn't ask for recognition. Dr. Collins noticed it, though he didn't say so. He noticed how patients would relax when she entered the room. How families would look to her, not just for information, but for comfort. Still, habits of thinking are slow to change. And pride, once settled in, doesn't easily move aside. One morning, the hospital felt different. There was a subtle tension in the air, like the stillness before a storm, but quieter, more controlled. Administrative staff moved with unusual urgency. Phones rang more often. Conversations were hushed, deliberate. Dr. Collins was reviewing charts when his office door opened without a knock. That alone was unusual. A hospital administrator stepped in, her expression composed but serious. "Dr. Collins," she said, "we've received a formal request." He looked up, mildly annoyed at the interruption. "From who?" She hesitated, just briefly. "From the Pentagon." The word seemed to settle into the room with weight. Dr. Collins straightened slightly, his attention sharpening. "The Pentagon?" he repeated. "Yes," she said. "They're requesting a specific individual. By rank, and by name." There was a pause. "And who would that be?" he asked. She glanced at the paper in her hand. "Lieutenant Rebecca Hayes." For a moment, the room felt very still. Dr. Collins blinked, as if the words hadn't quite arranged themselves properly. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "Did you say Rebecca Hayes?" "The same," the administrator confirmed. Another pause followed. Longer this time. Dr. Collins leaned back slightly, his mind working to reconcile what he'd just heard with what he thought he knew. "The nurse?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Yes," she said gently. "The nurse." Later that day, the hospital gathered in a small conference room. Not everyone understood what was happening, but word had spread. It always does. Rebecca stood near the front, still in her light blue scrubs, her posture the same as it had always been, calm, unassuming. But there was something different now. Not in her demeanor, but in how others were beginning to see her. An official document was read aloud. It spoke of specialized service, of advanced medical training conducted under military programs, of leadership in critical care situations overseas, of lives saved under conditions most could hardly imagine. It was quiet in the room. Not the kind of silence filled with tension, but the kind that comes when people begin to understand something they hadn't before. Rebecca had never spoken about any of it. Not once. Dr. Collins stood near the back, his arms loosely crossed, his expression unreadable. But inside, something was shifting. He thought back to that morning in the break room. To the casual tone in his voice. To the assumptions he hadn't even realized he was making. And for the first time in a long while, he felt something like humility settle in. After the meeting, the room slowly emptied. People approached Rebecca, offering congratulations, expressing quiet admiration. She received it all with the same gentle grace she always had. No change. No pride. Just a soft smile and a few kind words in return. Eventually, the room grew quiet again. Only two people remained. Dr. Collins and Rebecca. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he stepped forward, his usual confidence replaced with something more thoughtful. "Lieutenant Hayes," he said, the title careful on his tongue. Rebecca gave a small, warm smile. "Rebecca is fine," she replied. He nodded, though he hesitated before speaking again. "I owe you an apology," he said. The words were simple. Unadorned. Real. Rebecca tilted her head slightly, her expression curious but not surprised. "For what?" she asked gently. He let out a quiet breath. "For thinking I understood you, without really seeing you." There was a pause. Rebecca looked at him for a long moment, not judging, not weighing, just listening. Then she nodded, once. "It happens," she said softly. Her voice carried no resentment. Only understanding. Dr. Collins glanced down briefly, then back up. "You never said anything," he added. Rebecca's smile deepened, just a little. "Not everything needs to be said," she replied. Another quiet settled between them. But this one felt different. Lighter. More open. In the days that followed, something subtle changed in the hospital. Not in policies or procedures, but in the way people looked at one another. There was a little more patience. A little more listening. A little less assumption. Rebecca continued her work, just as she always had. Dr. Collins, too, continued his. But now, when they spoke, there was a quiet respect between them. Not announced. Not formal. Just understood. And perhaps that was the real lesson. Not about rank. Or titles. Or who had done what. But about the quiet truth that people carry whole worlds inside them, stories, sacrifices, strengths, that aren't always visible at first glance. Sometimes, it takes time to see them. And sometimes, it takes a moment of humility to truly understand. In the end, kindness doesn't come from knowing everything about someone. It comes from treating them with respect, even when you don't. And in a place where lives are mended every day, that kind of understanding can be its own quiet miracle.